watching this later, this is another one of our completely random and unscheduled live streams. Mostly random. And I never start them when I'm ready because I never tell people when I'm doing them. Because I only do them when the mood strikes me. Which is why no one's ever here to watch them. That's kind of a spooky color. Let's see if we can get a little more light out of that. I don't know. Oh, someone's here already. Landon Wold, shalom, brother. How you doing? So, this evening we have no topic. We are not scheduled. No one knows we're here. It's gonna be a shit show. So, why, you ask? The tradesman, shalom. Mark Ottinger, how you doing, brother? So, I know what you're asking. Why? Why would I do a live stream completely unannounced with no topic and not even a title? I missed you. I just wanted to say hi. And I'm lying a little bit. I do have a little bit of a topic. Hey, Tim. Are you sure? Because it's a shit show? George Washington. Listening from South Central Missouri. I love Missouri. Just went to Missouri back in, I don't know, September, down in the Ozarks. Gorgeous. Ah, Landon got a deer Friday and he's cutting it up tonight. Congratulations. Yeah, I'm surprised you did too, Mark. They normally don't want me talking, which is flattering. I mean, I'm flattered, but especially this close to the election, I assumed I would. Les, how you doing, brother? I should have sent y'all an email, but this was completely unplanned. Like an hour ago, I told Mariah, yeah, I might do a live stream. Jesse, how you doing, brother? Shalom. Anyway, went to Missouri back in September for the Biblical Families Retreat and loved it. What a beautiful area. I'm told the bugs are really bad, but I didn't notice them. All right, let me get this lit. Oh, thank you, Les. I appreciate that. I wish I could have showed you guys what it looked like finished. It turned out palmetto. How you doing, brother? I'm doing good. It turned out really good. We had the wedding sort of celebration this afternoon. Come on. There we go. It was a very nice time. My daughter married into a good, tight-knit family, very tribal, very proud of their family in a good way. They're good people. I like them. They don't quite know what to do with me, I feel like, but it could just be, yeah, the crickets are nice in the background. It could just be me projecting, because they're actually very similar people to us. They, the patriarch of the family has a nice big beard, and he's a blue collar guy, and they homestead. They got a little bit more dirt than we do. Few less kids, but they're good people. They love my daughter, and they've really adopted her, so it's good. But it was fun. All of my local children showed up. obviously my one daughter who got married was there because it was her wedding reception. Uh, but all of the children except three were there. Huh. Yeah, my oldest daughter wasn't there, my middle son wasn't there, and my oldest stepdaughter wasn't there. But everybody else was there. And all the grandchildren but one were there. So that's 12 children and three. Uh-oh, Palmetto's oldest daughter just got her first boyfriend. Dun dun dun. Suddenly all the theory becomes practice. Yes. Yes. Suddenly you've got to make it all work. When that first boyfriend shows up at the house, been there. Oh wow, she's just about to turn 14. Anyway, so it was really nice. So that's 12 kids and three grandkids. So I had 15 kids there, and my parents showed up, and Captain, it's these are seconds. I buy them in blocks of 20 for $40. So they're essentially $2 cigars, and I enjoy the hell out of them. I don't have a really developed palate for cigars. I can kind of tell a little bit, if something's better or worse. Uh, but hey, Mark, good evening. But these are very enjoyable at $2 a pop. So I don't have a very developed palate. So I wouldn't go so far as to say it's a good cigar, but it's an enjoyable cigar, which is in turn a good cigar. So yes, it's a good cigar. For $2 a pop, it's a very enjoyable cigar. We need to start arranging some marriages, bro. I don't disagree, Palmetto. I'm actually the $2 Chuck. Remember that wine? Like $2 Chuck. Remember that wine? Like $2 Chuck. I do not remember $2 Chuck. Is anything like Mad Dog 2020? I'm actually out of marriageable daughters for a while though, Palmetto. I've got one marriageable son, and well, I've got two marriageable sons, but one of them's probably about to be locked down. And then I've got a marriageable son, and then I've got a stepdaughter who's approaching marriageability, but she's not there yet. So I don't have anybody right now to try to farm out. Oh, you're planning a decade and a half ahead of time. Well, I'll be honest with you. I would do that too for a girl, but I wouldn't. I wouldn't accept a young man a decade and a half in advance, or even a decade in advance. I gotta wait and see. What is that shine? Oh, it's on my tooth. It keeps shining in there. I gotta wait and see what he's doing in the moment before I agree to a young man. Decade's just too far in the future to come up with that. Me too. Mark, I'm torn on that. Has feminism ruined marriage? Yes. Yes, 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 yes. But I can't help but feel like a man who was deliberate and determined and dedicated can't overcome feminism. I talking over tea. Is there a perfect young man in your mind? No. Uh, but what I would look for in a young man for my daughters Uh, would obviously be a strong religious faith, uh, a drive for to work, like a professional ambition of some kind. Uh, and then I would look at his family. I would want to see that his family was functional. And then I want to look at him and be able to to tell that he's not gonna put up with too much shit. Uh, I want a little bit of an asshole. Because I don't. My daughters need a strong man. Because they're strong young women, and that can get out of hand, especially if they're paired with a weak young man. So yeah, strong religious faith, uh, good good work ethic, uh, functional family. That doesn't mean an unbroken family. I'm divorced. My children come from a broken family. Some of them, not all of them. Uh, it's about half and half right now. With the new baby, it'll be half and half. Uh, but functional. No bitterness, no anger. They've found a way to function despite all the drama, that kind of stuff. Uh, that's what I'd be looking for. Not too interested in like wealth, as long as he's got a good work ethic. Not too concerned with when did you finally accept your son-in-laws? So I've had 4 sons-in-law. One didn't, approach me in the least. Uh, I didn't have a relationship with that daughter at that time anyway, and I still don't. That's my oldest daughter, and she's rejected me entirely. Yeah, and that marriage didn't last. Uh, so I actually did accept him because he checked all my boxes. I thought he'd ended up not having any kind of religious faith, and he had come from a very good family, but I had lost contact with that family over the years, and I didn't realize that they also had drifted from their faith. Uh, and and him and my daughter and him, my daughter and he, my daughter and he made some really bad, stupid decisions. I mean, like epically, classically bad. Uh, and that marriage was kind of doomed from the get go. So I accepted him, and I shouldn't have. All right, no, given the information I had at the time, I should have. Yeah, it was the best option. My next son-in-law is an excellent young man. He has an excellent work ethic. He has an excellent relationship with his family. He has a good, strong faith especially for a young man his age. Uh, he didn't do everything exactly the way I would have asked him to, but he did do things very, very, very well. Uh, and when some things went sideways and some things got hard, he stepped up and impressed me, uh, and I have a lot of respect for him, and we have a good relationship. My next son-in-law, uh, I don't have any relationship with. I do have a relationship with that daughter, but not the man she chose, and she chose him without any input from me. Which on one hand, it's my stepdaughter, and her father's alive, so I don't have any authority in her life. She really, there was no call for him to have any relationship with me or for me to have any input into that. You can't force authority structures. Hey, Mike Farmer, how you doing? So I didn't have any right to try to assert myself in that situation. I wish they would have talked to me. I think I could have made some things easier for them, and I'd like to have a relationship with him now, but he's not interested in it. So we've got that one sort of set aside. Uh, and then my newest son-in-law is in the same category as the second one. Excellent work ethic, strong faith, or let's say a good faith. Uh, for a man in his 20s, he's got a good faith. He's ahead of where I was at his age. Uh, Good, solid, blue collar job. Uh, uh, good family. I really like his family. A strong bond in his family, and I like him a lot. And so far, he's very new to the family, but so far we get along very well. So I've accepted him from the get go. Uh, I don't have this mentality. This is a very destructive mentality. Yeah, that's where I put the bar ahead of where I was at his age. Let's, it's a low bar on my part, but it's, yeah. I don't have this mentality that, oh, my daughter's a little princess, and the man who wants to take her is going to have to fight for it. No, they were created by God to be in relationship with a man. We over spiritualize this. We overcomplicate it. We set all these uh, we set all these barriers and insane, stupid, medieval type, King Arthurian legend standards for the knight errant rescuing the lady fair, and it's bullshit. It's bullshit. We should not be making it hard for our daughters to get married. We should be making it very easy for our daughters to marry good, solid men. We all know young men are dumbasses. We were all dumbasses when we were young. You cannot ever reduce all risk in life. Yes, any man can turn out insanely bad. Most men are going to improve over time, and by the time they get into their 40s and into their 50s, there's probably going to be decent, solid men. Again, if you start off with a strong religious faith, a good work ethic, and if you come from a decent family, really good chance that you're going to mature and improve. Uh, but this idea that our daughters have to be locked away and only the perfect man will ever get near my princess, it's just bullshit. Man, I just dropped from 24 to 18 viewers with that one statement. Hokey smokes, people do not like to hear that. Wow, that's ridiculous. Like, I was watching it, I was at 24 and it just dropped to 18. uh, Oh yeah, most women have a really high body count, uh, and part of that, probably even the biggest part of that, is that their daddies want to play princess games with them. Your daddy's little princess, and then the other part of it, this is a big part of it too. Y'all ain't gonna like this. Some of you aren't gonna like this. Some of y'all will love it. We we tell our young people, don't you have sex. But if you have sex, you better stop. You better repent and you better stop. Uh, yeah, Palmetto, I have that same problem. I've, I'm not a, I'm just going to throw it out there. From what I can recall, I've slept with 18 women, which is way too high. And the only reason I throw it out there is because I cannot remember most of their names, uh, which is insane to me because I didn't do one night stands. Uh, I just didn't, and I don't know. I shouldn't say didn't. I fell into one or two by accident, but it's not something that I was ever even looking for. And so I've had this. I hope I'm still broadcast. I streaming. I don't know. It just told me I was offline, and then I'm back on all of a sudden. Can someone give me a comment? But what a ridiculous stupid, destructive. Okay, I'm back. Thanks, guys. What a dumbass. I mean, why was I having sex with women whose name I didn't know well enough to remember her name? Uh, absolutely, absolutely insane. Uh, and this was in my 30s. Yeah, I went on this spree in between my marriages. Uh, so no, I wasn't even that young, though, Palmetto. Like I said, I was in my 30s. I already had 5 children, and I was about to get a sixth from being a dumbass. Uh, and hey, Anita, another gun is here. Uh, so just stupidity. But yeah, no, we tell these people, well, you better not have sex before you get married. And if you do, you better stop having that sex and repent. And we act like sex is just something you can repent of. And really, what happens is when you have sex with a woman, you have formed a valid one flesh relationship with her. You are now actually married in God's eyes, or an adulterer. Sex always either forms the one flesh relationship or destroys the one flesh relationship. One flesh is what God calls marriage. There is no word in the Bible for marriage. Uh, really, there's a word that gets used a couple times to explain things around marriage, like a marriage supper. But there's no word that's ever used to describe the relationship between the man and the woman that's any kind of corollary to what we call marriage. It's sex, and we have all these people forming one flesh relationships, and then you violating them, breaking them. Uh, oh, but Palmetto Paratrooper, sir. Palmetto Paratrooper, sir. Go find me. We'll wait. We'll be here for a while. You've got time. Go find me the biblical definition of a concubine. Uh, Go ahead and tell me how one becomes a concubine, and tell me how concubines differ from a regular wife. We won't wait, but we'll still be here when you get back. Or, or I can save you some time because you're a smart young man and I respect you. Okay, but Palmetto, no, that's a great paraphrase, but where is that in Scripture? Go ahead and show me that in Scripture where that definition of a concubine is. Let me save you some time. It's not in there. I'm admitted and swinger family with multiple wives, mothers, and fathers. Shima Shakir. Huh. That's interesting. Let me say that again. BU. I'm admitted and swinger family with multiple wives, mothers, and fathers. Shima Shakir. That's interesting. I don't know what that means. You have to give us some explanation there, Anita. So, talking with over tea, my assertion is that there is no such thing as a concubine in God's economy. Uh, God only has wives. Uh, there were things described as concubines, or pilagesh is the word that gets used in the. I can't remember if that's Greek or Hebrew. I tend not to trust anything that says it's Hebrew because we don't really have Hebrew. All the Hebrew we have was translated back into Hebrew from the Greek, and the Greek is the oldest we have, and I think there's a good reason for that. So I tend to only look at the Greek. But that being said, there is a word that gets used in Scripture that gets translated as concubine. It's pilagesh. It can mean maid servant, but pilageshes don't always aren't always having sex with the master. We think a lot of times they are, but that a lot of that's an assumption. Uh, my contention is that God only has wives. God doesn't have concubines. Remember, marriage is a metaphor for God's relationship with his Christ and the church and Israel and God and Israel. But God doesn't have concubines. God only has wives. And I say that there is no difference to God in how you treat a concubine and how you treat a wife. Okay, and here's the other problem you have to remember. There's no word in the Bible for wife either. Dun dun dun. Like literally, there's I'm honest to my children. I view stepfathers and stepchildren, even honoring ex-wives. Hey, John Lass, you're not late. This wasn't planned. I'm honest to my children. I view stepfathers and stepchildren, even honoring ex-wives, further children as children. Huh. Interesting. So there's no word for wife. It's only woman. Yeah, but Palmetto, just because it's a female slave or a female servant doesn't mean it's a sex slave or a servant you're having sex with. A man could have a female servant that he's not sleeping with. So that's kind of not a descriptor. It's like an argument from silence. Most of these women, we don't know if they were actually. So, like with Jacob, Zilha and Bilpah, I might not have said that right. Bilhah and Zilpah, I don't remember. The two servant girls that Leah and Rachel gave to Jacob, they get referred to as wives or Pilagesh, both. But again, there's no word for wives in the Greek or the Hebrew. It's only woman. So you can't define concubine in Scripture. So as far as I can tell, there is no difference in Scripture in God from God's viewpoint between a concubine and a wife. This idea that, by the way, wives don't get inheritance either. You can't show me anywhere in there where wives get inheritance or that the children of concubines don't get inheritance. These are all myths that have built up around this idea of concubines. You can turn that book inside out and shake it upside down, and you will not be able to get a description or an explanation of concubines to fall out of it. I just don't think it's in God's plans for us to have concubines. And remember, I am a supporter of polygyny. I do believe in what most people call polygamy, that is acceptable. I don't think concubines are a godly concept. And again, we just have to look at the. But now, okay, so some of you are out there going, "Well, this guy's so weird." So there's this really interesting woman out there. What did God call Eve before he created her when he was allowing. Oh, hold on a second. What's this? What did God call Eve before he created her when he was allowing look 3 the creation animals, Adam to look for a wife? I don't know, Captain. Nemo, I'd be interested to hear what you have to say. I've wondered, did King David receive the heavenly promise after his life of abomination? Jesse, I think you might be mistaking David and Solomon, maybe, because Scripture is very, very clear. It says, and someone can probably get us this verse, that except in the matter of Uriah the Hittite, King David did not fail to do all that the Lord his God commanded him all the days of his life. David didn't live a life of abomination. Only time he screwed up was with Uriah the Hittite, and then there's this other instance when he did that I don't understand, and I've never heard a good explanation for, where he did a census of the people, and God reacted very, very badly to it. And I don't know why. I don't understand that incident, and I can't completely reconcile it with the later statement that he did not fail to do all the Lord his God commanded him, except in the matter of Uriah the Hittite. But there's no way to read the Scripture and come up with David living a life of abomination. Now Solomon does go through a pretty extended period in his life where he's living a life of an abomination and he's worshiping false gods and false idols, and he's been drawn away by his foreign wives. So I'm wondering if maybe you're not thinking of Solomon rather than David, or unless you're just describing that period with Bathsheba uh, as, but that wouldn't be a life of abomination. That was an abominable act. It was an abominable instance, period. But it was a very brief one. He repents very, very quickly. Uh, because he elevated what should have been a concubine to a wife. But again, you'd have to prove to me that something should be a woman should be a concubine, and that a woman who should be a concubine can't be elevated to a wife. That's not an idea I think you can defend from a scriptural standpoint. But again, I might have missed a conversation somewhere in there. Sort of jealous over multiple dozen children. Yeah, I would be too. I did meet a guy. I was at a house recently doing what I do at the house, and the guy mentioned, well, just ignore all the mess. I've got a bunch of kids, and I said, oh, you don't have a bunch of kids, and he said, well, maybe I don't have that many, but my dad's got more than any man you'll ever meet. And those of you who know me know I have 16 children. So I love that conversation. I love throwing that number out there, and I love watching men's eyes get big, people's eyes get big, and they get all shocked. Uh, uh, Palmetto, I don't think though that you can sleep with her. Then, if you had a foreign female slave that was not a believer, I don't think you would be able to take her physically. Uh, Anywho, this guy says, "Oh yeah." So I get ready to throw my 16 number out there, and he says, "Yeah, my dad's got 24." And I go, "Boom! What?" It is so rare that anyone beats me at that game that I was completely unmanned. I didn't know what to say. I was just like, "Oh my god." Uh, and he told me the whole story. It was a pretty interesting story, pretty interesting guy. I enjoyed the conversation. But he shocked me. He was right. I believe him. He told me the story, and it rang very, very true. So this gentleman stole my thunder, or at least his dad stole my thunder. Where were we going with all that? Has anyone heard from Jesse? Has he clarified what he meant about David's life of abomination? Did I just miss it? Okay. Da-da-da-da-da. Palmetto. Captain says in the Greek translation, what was that? But what did God call Eve before he created her? So just woman. I think he called. Oh. Actually, I think he calls her Adam. I think God calls them both Adam, if I remember. I might be pulling this out of somewhere. I shouldn't be talking about this stuff without the text in front of me. Uh, but it's Adam who names her Eve. But then the text does refer to her as the woman or as woman. Uh, so, and I think maybe Adam doesn't even name her maybe until after the fall. I might be making that up. I frequently make things up in my head. You want to hear something else I've made up in my head recently? Okay, so I subscribe to the big lizard theory for explaining dinosaurs. I believe Adam and Eve were in the garden for a mildly extended period of time. By the way, this is not an important belief to me. If you disagree with this, just throw it out. I don't care. It's brain candy. It's not important. This is an unrevealed thing. It's the secret things that belongs to God. It's not important. But I believe in the young Earth. I'm not an old Earth, evolutionist. I'm a young Earth creationist. But I do believe that the Adam and Eve existed in the garden for some extended period of time. I'm assuming in the 100,000 year range. I don't know why I chose 100,000 years. could be less, but that's what I'm thinking. And here's my theory, and here's why I'm bringing this up. Because this is we're going to get to the this is all going to feed into my theory, my new theory. But I have a new theory about the dinosaurs. I have a refined theory about the dinosaurs. I think this one was an original thought. I've never heard this before. Original thoughts are very, very, very rare. I've only had 3 or 4 in my whole life, and I think this is like the 4th. You tell me what you think. Dragons. So here's my theory about dinosaurs. So no, I believe Adam and Eve were in the garden for some extended period of time, and that's why I think there were people to outside the garden for Cain to be scared of when he slew Abel, because I believe people were leaving the garden all the time. Adam and Eve were being fruitful and they were multiplying in this period, and people were leaving the garden and filtering out through the earth. Either because they ate of the tree, the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good, or just because they left the garden. They just went out and populated the earth. And remember, death hadn't happened yet, and so now we've got all this time for reptiles, which we know even today will grow as long as they live. That you can just get, as long as they don't die and as long as they're fed enough food, reptiles will just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I subscribe to the big lizard theory of dinosaurs, that dinosaurs weren't distinct animals, that they were just big lizards that had a very long time to grow. Oh well, I mean, this is just speculation, Paul Meadow. I'm not trying to add anything to Genesis. The text, this idea would fit comfortably within the text. You wouldn't have to alter anything for this to be in the text. And in fact, it explains some things in the text because, well, we'll get to it in a second. But here's the problem with the big lizard theory of dinosaurs. Modern scientists will tell us that dinosaurs had distinct hips, that their hip structure was different from modern day lizards, serpents, and reptiles. And they walked more upright. Some of you already know where I'm going with this. And so that dinosaurs could not be just really big examples of modern day reptiles. Now, you would have to add to the text to put Lilith in there, Palmetto, because the text tells us that all the living people descend from Eve. So if Lilith would be added, her story involves her having children. Yeah, Lilith doesn't fit the text. Anywho, so that dinosaurs can't be really big examples of modern day reptiles because they have different hips that cause them to walk upright. However, I was just reading, because our Torah portion had it recently, the creation account where God curses the serpent and tells the serpent that from now on he'll crawl on his belly, crawl in the dust on his belly. So what if that curse just applied to all reptiles? And at that point, God effectuates a change in reptiles so that all reptiles no longer get to walk upright, and now they all crawl on their bellies in the dust. And now we could have really big lizards instead of dinosaurs, and we could have a change in their hip structure. Does it sound far-fetched? I love the Meet Me in St. Louis movie. That's a great movie. Debbie Reynolds, probably her most attractive. Maybe not. Well, but serpents. What are serpents? Reptiles can be serpents. I mean, serpents is another word for snakes, anyway. Yeah, but alligators crawl in the dirt. They crawl on their belly. Yeah, Anita, my dogs are out doing their job. I have Great Pyrenees that patrol all night long, and they just bark and bark and bark and bark and bark, and they're really great dogs, and they do a good job. But you have to learn to tune out the barking. If you can't tune out barking, then you can't have Pyrenees because they will bark. Anywho, so that's my new theory about dinosaurs, that that they are really big examples of modern lizards because they had a long time to grow in the garden before the fall happened, and then God cursed them all and changed their hip structure so that you know now all modern reptiles no longer walk upright; they crawl in the dirt. Now, why I like this theory is not necessarily about the dinosaurs because I don't care about the dinosaurs. I could come up with a half dozen, you know, plausible. Nona, how are you doing, Nona? Yeah, yeah. Nona and I have been friends for a long time, and we're on Facebook together. She lives in Florida. I don't think I'm telling any stories out of turn here, Nona. You did just put a post up about comment up about alligators, but she's all the time putting up pictures of Florida wildlife, and I keep thinking to myself, girl, you got to get out of that state. That's just not. It's not okay. That's not right. It's not. No, just no. I don't like alligators. Hey, Mark. So, I think you've said that before too, Mark. That your dogs bark, but my dogs bark. Uh, so, oh, Nona's trying to get out of Florida. Well, Georgia's a nice place. You bring that young man back north with you. Anyway, where was I? Oh, Cain comes out of the garden, kills his brother. God curses him, and he says, "Oh, but you've cursed me with more than I can bear, and now everyone's going to kill me." Well, who's going to kill him? Uh, if someone's going to kill him, there's got to be someone there to kill him. And my explanation for those people are that they are older brothers and sisters, or nephews and nieces and cousins. Uh, uh, that just left the garden pre-fall. Anyway, I sometimes wonder if the book of Job also doesn't originate pre-fall because God's talking in a much more direct way with individuals than we see him do post-fall. But again, that's all speculation. It's all brain candy. It's all fun to think about. It's all fantasy. None of it's important. You fit insults, you throw it away. It's just me speculating wildly about some things. So, Palmetto Paratrooper is here. We love Palmetto Paratrooper. He's a fine young man, good patriot, veteran, free thinker. He don't vote. Palmetto Paratrooper don't vote. I got a bone to pick with you, young man. We cannot lose this election. Gentlemen, Palmetto Paratrooper has a moral objection to voting. If you do not have a moral objection to voting and you do not vote in this election, you have failed your grandchildren. This is a big one. This is a big one. Look, I honestly believe that there is a chance for us to make some headway in turning this thing around if Donald Trump gets another term. Not because I think Donald Trump is some savior, not because I think he's, a great political thinker or any of this stuff. Uh, I think that the left is finally running out of steam. And I think we can make some headway if we can keep Kamala out. Let me just tell you something I just heard yesterday, or today. I think it's yesterday. The 2020 census was flawed, rigged. It undercounted votes in 7 conservative states, and it overcounted votes in 7 liberal states. And what that did, which I'd never made this connection before, I knew that congressional seats were apportioned by the census. It never clicked for me that electoral votes are proportioned by the census. Each state gets assigned its electoral votes based off of the census. So the census was inaccurate, substantially inaccurate. I think like 5% off or something. And so there's 7 to 9 electoral votes that got assigned to liberal states that they don't deserve, that should have gone to conservative states. I know on the conservative side, some of the states were like Texas and Arkansas, and maybe Missouri and Tennessee. And I know some of the liberal states were the big ones you would think of: New York, Massachusetts, some of those. So we started off this election 7 to 9 electoral points behind because they were just fraudulently assigned to the wrong states. Now, that census happened under Trump. So like I said, Trump's not a savior. Trump's not perfect. Trump's much, 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 much better than the alternative. Remember, you're not voting for the person you believe in. You're voting for the person you'd rather fight. You're voting for the person who weakens you the least. All right? Trump weakens me less than Kamala weakens me. Trump leaves my guns largely alone. Trump leaves me a little bit more of my money. Trump, tries not to hire a bunch more bureaucrats. No, Palmetto, the system that enslaves you exists. Voting gives you a small amount of influence on the system. Remember, Jesus paid Caesar's tax. And not only did Jesus pay Caesar's tax, he held Caesar's coin in his hand. Remember, Caesar's coin had Caesar's face on it, and Caesar claimed to be a god. And not only did Jesus hold this coin with a false god's image on it, he used it for its intended purpose. He participated. Remember, Paul was a Roman citizen. That didn't mean Paul was legitimizing pagan Rome. And I do believe my vote is counted, Palmetto, because Trump won in 2016. You got to remember, Trump won in 2016. All right. Now, maybe they just didn't cheat enough. Oh, hey, Jesse, I didn't realize the Vance podcast came out already. I'll have to go listen to that. I was really impressed with Trump's appearance on Rogan. So we can't say that voting doesn't work, because we got Trump in 2016. And then we got 3 conservative Supreme Court justices. Men, I cannot explain to you how different our world would be right now if Trump had lost in 2016. I cannot explain to you how different things would be. There would be a liberal supermajority on the court. All right? It's not just that Roe versus Wade would have gotten overturned. As soon as they got their liberal supermajority, they would have rammed through all of these fake cases. They would have gotten their Supreme Court to turn the Second Amendment into mush. They probably would have made Puerto Rico a state, and they probably would have made Washington, D.C. a state, and they would have gotten 4 more liberal senators, and this country would have been gone, done. Dystopian hellhole, all right? Completely transformed. Trump won in 2016. Voting does work. Voting can work. But even if it didn't, it's still valuable. You're still registering a protest. You're still giving them, because they see the votes. Maybe they don't count the votes. Maybe if you don't believe they count votes, but they see the votes, and they can say, oh, 60% of the country opposes this. You know, we got to go a little bit slower. It still affects the system. But even if it didn't, it would still be valuable. Hey, Lance Corporal Veteran, how you doing? Just so that we have because what's it cost? What's it cost? It takes 45 minutes to go vote. You do it once every 4 years. Once every 4 years. You can't take 45 minutes. Now, I know, Palmetto, you've got a moral objection. I disagree with your moral objection, but I accept your moral objection. I think you're mistaken, but I at least believe it's a principled stand. I accept it as a principled stance. So I'm not talking to you right now. But for people who don't have that moral objection, who just think it's wasting their time, it's 45 minutes. It's once every 4 years. If there was a 1% chance it worked, if there was a 1% chance it helped, if it just gave you a clear conscience so you can speak your mind out loud, why wouldn't you do it? Hell, it's worth it to go see your neighbors. Every time I go vote, I end up in a conversation with someone I haven't seen in a few years. It's worth it to me just for the social aspect of it, in my instance. Go vote. I don't care. Okay, you've got a moral objection like Palmetto. Stand on your principles. I can respect that. I disagree, but I can respect it. But if you don't have some deep-seated moral objection to voting, and you don't vote, I can't reconcile that in my mind, because it costs nothing. You don't have to pay any money. You don't have to spend all day doing it. I don't care what the libs say, especially any of us. You know, we don't live in any of these places where there's 10,000 people trying to vote all at once. Not that anyone does. Go take 45 minutes. Take your ass down to the polling place. Cast a vote. All right? Someone died. Many people have died thinking, bearded, hey, Wolfpack, thinking that they were sacrificing their lives so you could vote. Now, whether you think they were or not, they thought they were. And there were men who bled their life's blood out in mud on foreign soil thinking, well, it was worth it because my offspring, my descendants can vote. It's worth it because my countrymen can vote. Kid you not making that up. That's not melodramatic. That's not, rah-rah patriotic bullshit. That's not nationalism. That's God's honest truth. There have men who have died on foreign soil thinking it was worth it because, I'm preserving democracy, even though I'm not a big believer in democracy. At least not universal suffrage. Don't have much use for universal suffrage. Please, Mark turned 60 last week. It's not the same. No, it's not. I just turned 49 last month. It's not the same country I grew up in. Okay, Trump podcast on Rogan is already the most listened to in history. In 1 week, he reached out to Kamala, but she said she wouldn't talk for an hour. Oh, she would talk for an hour if he came to her. Trump and Vance talked for 3 hours each. Viking preparedness is in the chat. Pastor Fox, shalom, sir. What an honor. What an absolute honor. Good to hear from you, sir. Tell us what we should be talking about, Pastor Fox. I did see that you had some pictures of some chemtrails here recently. I'm trying to think what else I've heard you talking about lately, so we could pick your brain vicariously here in the comments section. We don't get the opportunities to. I don't get the opportunity. I would enjoy to speak with you. But anywho. All right, I said my piece on that. So, I've been thinking, just because I got this new son-in-law, right? Yeah, the goat. Everyone's going to want to tell Pastor Fox shalom. Y'all go ahead and do that real quick. I've been thinking a lot lately because I got this new son-in-law, and my sons are growing up. Anyway, what are the things we as men should be doing, or could be doing, or would be helpful to us to improve ourselves? To sort of hold on to our Pastor. Well, okay. So Pastor Fox says he's just getting ready to be on our own. Let's run with that for a second, and we'll put mine aside. Because I've thought about this some too. Actually, this is what we all think about. This is what Pastor Fox has been talking about for 20 years. I was actually just looking at his book again the other day, and thinking about some of this preparing to cut ourselves off, not cut ourselves off. To be in let's just use the spiritual language. To be in this world, but not of this world. How are we going to prepare ourselves to be separate? How are we going to come out of her? How do we prepare ourselves to come out of her? And honestly, I believe 100% that the vast majority of that is learning to live without the comforts and the pleasures of the modern world. Absolutely, we need to learn how to grow our own food, produce our own calories. Absolutely, we need to be able to provide our security. We need to have a level of physical fitness. We need to jealously guard our freedoms and our religion and raise our children and homeschool and all the stuff. But where they get us is in the conveniences. It really is the trifles that make your life easier. Yeah, know how to swing an axe. That's a big one. I'll be able to swing an axe. Recently, I got a new gas card for my work truck, and it had that chip on there. And I was at this gas station, and their card reader didn't work, and they wanted me to tap the card. If you don't know if you haven't seen this before, some of these new cards, you can just like place it on top of the card reader, and just by it being in proximity, it reads the card, and you don't have to insert or slide anymore. Now, when they first came out with the whole insert the card thing, I was just rolling my eyes. I'm like, oh God, this is so stupid. What is wrong with swiping the card? This insert stuff is driving me nuts. And it didn't take me but a few weeks before I was like, I never want to swipe again. All I want to do is insert the card. Swiping it's so hard. I just want to insert. And then the tap came out. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. This is a security, nightmare. People are going to... Now it's like, oh my God, I've got to insert the card. Why don't you have the tap feature? They I don't do much fishing, Captain, and I need to start because I've got a couple of my younger sons who really want to do it, and I've just never done it. I don't know that much about it, but that's not an excuse these days with YouTube University. I could learn easily. All right. Okay, so this is a really stupid story, but it illustrates human nature. They boil that frog with a little bit of convenience and a little bit of convenience and a little bit of pleasure and a little bit of leisure and a little bit of comfort, and then we get used to it, and then they hit us with another little bit of it, you know, and then you get used to that, and the next thing you know, you like can't live without air conditioning. Be a lot easier with a hip in your hand or forehead. Oh, chip. Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly. Oh, excellent point, Pastor Fox. Pearl, mind bomb. He absolutely. I hadn't made that next connection yet. Look, they've been walking me down this primrose path. A little bit of ease, a little bit of convenience, a little bit easier, a little bit of convenience, and the next thing you know, oh yeah, you know what? I didn't like the chip in my forehead, but man, it is really really easy. It is so convenient, and it's hard to exist in this society without it. And bam, you got your chip in your forehead, and you never even made the decision. We have to be willing to live without their conveniences. Ugh. Now I think I got to burn my gas card, Pastor Fox. I might have to quit my job. we and I this some of you aren't going to like this. I think for most of us, it starts with turning off the air conditioning. Turn off the air conditioning. This, uh, first off, it's unhealthy. Honestly, I believe it's unhealthy because it traps us in our home. When we first moved out here, I'd never had air conditioning growing up. Okay, Savage Air Guns, absolutely, you're right. And I'm going to try to remember to come back to this statement. Uh, I can't promise you I'll remember. Uh, but I'd never grown up with air conditioning, never had it growing up in Georgia. The only time I ever had air conditioning was when I was in the Marines, of all things. So I was pretty used to the heat. And when we moved out here, the AC system didn't work, and I knew I couldn't afford to run it anyway. We were in a really impoverished state. We were living off about $15,000 a year. And so I knew I couldn't fix it, and even if I could fix it, I couldn't afford to run it. So I put a window unit in one of the bedrooms, and the idea was just going to be that at the heat of the day, everyone could, cool off in that one bedroom. But uh, in what ended up happening was everybody spent every day, all day in that bedroom, and it's not a big bedroom, and so there would be, you know, 8 kids and a pregnant woman piled up in that bedroom all day long. Uh, and of course, they're, yeah, Captain Nemo's AC all the way, baby. And of course, they're not going outside 65 year round. They're not going outside. They're not getting exercise. Everyone's getting mad at each other because they're cooped up in this room and they're bored out of their minds. And they're not getting fresh air and the whole 9 yards. And I actually ended up unplugging it and not doing it anymore. And it was one of the better decisions I've ever made. Suddenly now everyone's outside because it's way too hot to be inside. Everybody's sweating, they're playing, they're going down to the lake or they're going down to the creek and all the stuff. It was a wonderful decision. Uh, so first of all, it's just unhealthy. Yeah. But it ties you to their system. Now you got to have air conditioning. You can't live with air. And I mean, I know people who can't live without air conditioning. I mean, it's not an option for them. They can't, 65 degrees all year round. Uh, and it's a mental thing. That's all it is a mental thing. I was in the desert one time. It was 125 degrees, and a lot of us have done this. It's nothing special to me. And I was, full. This is when I was in the Marines, full camis. I was in an armored Humvee, so I was in this metal Humvee, full camis, flat jacket, Kevlar. Now we were able to set in, and we put up the camo nets to get a tiny little bit of shade, and then I was able to take off the flak jacket and the Kevlar, but I was still in full camis. Drank 5 gallons of water that day. Got so hot I thought I was going to go insane. Like I didn't think I could take it anymore. Uh, yeah, Savage had his 5th child. Congratulations, sir. That's a big deal. 5 is a big number. Your kids start taking on they take on a culture of their own when you get up to 5. You will start noticing an entire, like I said, culture. There's no other way to say it. Uh, that just takes on its own life, and you don't even have to. It's going to be very, very cool. You're going to be very, 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 very sort of overwhelmed with what you see with 5 kids. That's a different level. That's kind of like, corporal in the Marine Corps is the lowest rank of leadership. That's your entry into NCO. Five is your entry into bigger families, culture. Ah, Fletcher, he had a son. But we have to be willing to live with that. Listen, this is going to be a hard one. This is going to be a hard one. You aren't going to like this. We're going to have to learn to live without health care. That's scary. That's scary. I just turned 49 last month. We have some cancer in my family. My mom's had cancer. My dad's had cancer. One of my brothers has cancer. It's prevalent. Oh, I have a grandfather who has cancer. It's prevalent in the family. It's scary and I don't have health insurance. I haven't had health insurance since I got out of the Corps. 20 plus years now. 22 years. We've got to be willing to live without health care, because they're going to use health care to control you. Oh, well, you have to, you want health care. Well, you got to understand that you're a conservative, and you're a mean person, and your meanness to other people increases those people's mental health struggles, and so your conservative beliefs have raised the healthcare costs for everyone else, and so you're going to have to pay a higher premium. Or oh, you're religious and you won't, you don't believe in abortion. You're denying. Anyway, they're going to use healthcare to control you, and they're going to withhold it from you, if you don't comply with their wishes. And you're going to have to be willing to say, I accept that. That's scary. That's scary. I don't care who you are. That's well, no, I mean, if you're 21 and think you're bulletproof and will never die, maybe that's not scary. But if you're 49 and you're watching the people around you get sick, you start thinking, hey, I wouldn't mind some health insurance. And we're going to have to be willing to look at the. And I might, Lance Corporal veteran, I might have to. Now, not how. Well, listen to me. God, I just did it. Hokey smokes. Not that I might have to, but it might be expedient for me to, just to keep my PSAs checked. It's prostate cancer. Hey, truth. It's prostate cancer that seems to be running through the family right now, and But they're going to use all that little stuff to try to make you comply. And we're going to have to be willing to say, I'm sorry, but I'm not willing to make that compromise. I'm not willing to trade my beliefs for that convenience you're offering me. And usually it's an illusion. Like that healthcare they want to bribe you with, is horseshit. It's awful. We're incredibly unhealthy. We're dying at a much more rapid rate every year. Their health care doesn't work. It's garbage. For the vast majority of things, you'd be better off losing weight and eating less sugar than you would be going to the doctor. But still, when you're sick, when your child's sick, when they have 105 fever and you're scared out of your damn mind, and all you want is to not be the one responsible if your child, because that's what it is. It's almost always that we want someone else to take responsibility. It's, oh, what if something terrible happened? I wouldn't want that on my conscience. Well, that's that's passing the buck. That that's that's ducking responsibility. And I know we live in a heuristic world. People have to have specialties. We can't do it all. It's too complex. There's too much knowledge needed. I get all that. You know, you can't be a mechanic and an engineer and a doctor and a lawyer. You gotta be able to consult specialists. And there's times when modern healthcare is a wonderful thing. When there's a problem, when there's a real problem, Western medicine is a literal lifesaver. Walk it off, let's just. Uh, so I'm not saying don't ever. If I broke my leg today, I'd be in the doctor tonight. I mean, I'm not one of these. I don't reject healthcare completely. I just think it's incredibly ineffective, and that they're going to use it as a tool to control us. That's why they want socialized medicine. The left, it's one of their greatest goals is to get single payer health care because it gives them such incredible reach into the economy and into people's lives, and it gives them such this huge uh, mechanism for control. Uh, and they just covet it. They just covet it. Yeah, I mean, look what they did with the trans stuff. All of that was done through the medical community. Same thing with normalizing homosexuality. They captured the psychology and psychiatry communities, and they just changed the definition. Didn't do any studies or anything. They just got together, had a meeting, and said, "Yeah, we think it's fine now." They did that through the healthcare community. They Same thing with abortion. They just said, "Well, this is healthcare, and now we get to kill babies because it's healthcare." Uh, ah, I do this every time. I talk and talk and talk and let my cigar go out. Hey, Sharon's with us. So the main way we come out of her is to look her in the eye and say, I don't need what you're offering me. You're not offering me anything of value. And I don't have to make the compromises you're asking for the yes, yes, Sharon. You are right. Food will be the choke point. That will be the hardest one. Uh, do you seriously think that in the next 2 years revaluation will be needed? Okay, so if I'm interpreting that question correctly, what Les is talking about is a revaluation of the dollar. So, just to recap quickly, you all know this, you all know more than I do. America runs massive amounts of deficits. Uh, and every year we just print trillions and trillions of dollars and blow them out all over the world. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen one of those cash. There's like these guns that shoot out uh, cash real quick, and our federal government is just one giant cash gun shooting out cash. And so the idea in revaluation is that we're printing so much dollars, we're taking on so much debt that our currency is going to collapse, uh, and there's going to have there's going to be massive inflation, and you're going to have to issue a whole new currency because the old one, the numbers get so high. You know, you'll need $1 billion to buy a loaf of bread type stuff. And people talk about they point to Chile and Argentina and Weimar Republic during the Weimar Republic period of Germany, and there's been other periods. Hyperinflation. It's hyperinflation. When I was in Brazil as a kid, there were two types of currency, and there was the old currency and the new currency, and they were still using both, but the difference was the numbers had gotten so ridiculously large on the old currency that they just printed a new currency with smaller numbers. And so you would literally need like 10 million of the old to make certain amounts of the new, and that's the devaluation. Here's the problem. The first thing is, yes, eventually, yes, it will happen. Is happening. It is happening. The problem is it's not happening quickly. It is happening quickly in economic terms, but those are not quickly from our viewpoint. So there is a huge global demand for dollars. Most debt around the world is denominated in dollars. Most trade around the world between nations is done in dollars. And that can't change on a dime. So that there will always be this huge demand for dollars around the world. People will sell us their goods to get our dollars because they also have debt, and those debts have to be paid back in dollars. No one wants to take the Tongo wampum money for their debts. They want Tongo to go sell their wampum and buy dollars and pay their debts in dollars. And that's why we can keep printing all this money and keep selling it. That can't go away all at once. Now, there's all this talk about de-dollarization in the oil markets. There have been moves for de-dollarization in the oil markets, but they're tiny, minuscule little moves. In fact, more oil is sold in dollars today than it was 10 years ago. The other problem is oil sales are only a small proportion of the dollar transactions that happen globally. Now, let me stop here real quick and tell you that I despise the fact that the dollar is the global reserve currency. I believe that the dollar being the global reserve currency is one of the main roots of the rot in our country. The fact that we can run these massive deficits, the fact that we can have all this luxury and all this ease and all this comfort is what's killing us. It's one of the things that's killing us. And all of this stuff, and our massive government, our this huge complex that with all the spying and all this stuff, that's all paid for on the back of debt. And then the reason we can have all this debt is because the dollar is the global reserve currency. If BRICS would stand up, if BRICS would come up with a new reserve currency and dethrone the dollar, it would save our country. It would save our culture. So I want the dollar to lose global reserve currency. It would be incredibly hard. It would be incredibly destructive, but it would be a creative destruction. So everything I'm about to say is not because I'm clinging to the past or any of this stuff. It's just It's looking at it as clear-eyed as a guy with a high school education can, right? Uh, because of the amount of dollars that are needed for global trade, and because of the amount of debt that is already denominated in dollars and cannot be changed, uh, the dollar will continue to be a global reserve currency, the global reserve currency, probably for the rest of our lifetimes. Uh, Now it's going to continue to diminish. It's going to lessen. It's going to drip, 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 drip. Uh, but there is unlikely to be a giant moment of catastrophe and collapse. Unlikely. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying it's unlikely. Now, I'm also not saying that the dollar is strong. I'm not saying that our economy is healthy. I'm not saying that the system's not sick, twisted, and broken, or that we should just participate in it. I'm not saying any of those things. I'm telling you that the timeline might not be as quick as we want it to be. People have been predicting the collapse of the dollar since the actually, since the Federal Reserve was established in 1913 or 1912. Uh, but certainly they started predicting it heavily in the 30s, 1934, when the gold was all confiscated. Uh, People were talking about it right after World War II with the massive deficits. They went hard on it again in 70. Was it 70 or 74 when Nixon finally killed the gold standard? And you know what? They were all right each time, by the way. They weren't wrong. Uh, it just takes longer than we think. So it is happening. It's not that it will happen, it's that it is happening. And that's part of the problem. It is happening all around us, and it's happening a little bit at a time and a little bit at a time. And they're hiding it in inflation, and they're hiding it by cooking all these books and manipulating all these numbers. And they're hiding it and moving it around. And it's going just a little bit at a time and a little bit at a time and a little bit at a time and a little bit at a time. And they're boiling the frog. So will they have to revalue the currency in the next 2 years? Probably not. Are they doing all of the things? Uh, is it a destructive theft? Absolutely. It is a destructive theft. There is no criticism that you could lay at the foot of this system that wouldn't be true. I'm just saying, if we're all looking for the cataclysmic event, if we're looking for the collapse of Camelot, we're probably not going to get it. We're probably going to wake up one day and realize that we've just been completely enveloped by the snake. China's done. China's not a thing. Don't write China off. Write China off. America will fall, but we will fall from within. Uh, China are communists. They're communists. Communism always fails. Communism cannot win. It can't unless God has just decided to use them as the instrument for our judgment. Because judgment is coming, we will be judged. I don't believe our judgment, and I'm not a prophet. I'm not saying this is a word from God or on high or anything. This is just what I believe. I believe that when we fall, it will be from within, and it will be so undeniable that it's a judgment from God, that no one is it's not gonna be something where people can say, well, the Chinese just outcompeted them. The whole world is gonna look at us and say, oh my God, they've been they've been judged. So I don't think China is a threat. I haven't heard. Remember, look, China has two aircraft carriers. They can't land planes on them. The planes have to be landed on their aircraft carriers with cranes. Right? When a plane takes off from one of their aircraft carriers, it has to land on land. That's not an aircraft carrier. That's a floating airstrip, and it's not even a very good airstrip because they cannot launch airplanes off of those aircraft carriers that have weapons or a full load of fuel. Okay, these aircraft carriers are literally floating showpieces. They're barges. They're just big barges that carry planes around. They're not weapons. All right. China is not a threat. China can be very, 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 very formidable inside its little area there. So, yes, China is a threat to Taiwan. China's probably not even a threat to Japan, unless they're just going to start launching nuclear missiles. Now, I have not seen strong evidence that China can get a nuclear payload from their mainland to our mainland. I'm not sure that China's ballistic missiles are good enough to get to us from there. I know North Korea's aren't. That's a total fiction. North Korea just had its longest ever burn time for a missile, and it was 86 minutes, or flight time. They had the longest flight time for a missile was 86 minutes, and it just happened recently. So North Korea's, that's North Korea. I'm sorry, I might have said China. That's North Korea. And China doesn't have any nuclear submarines. Now, diesel submarines can get from China to America. So, I mean, there is a submarine threat. But anyway, but China, commies, dirty, atheist commies. The dumbest system known to man. Can't do anything right. And we see massive amounts of evidence of this in China itself. There are hundreds. Well, let me walk that statement back. There are vast amounts of cars just sitting in lots, brand new cars, never sold, can't be sold. They all just have to be shredded and scrapped because China just produced cars. Someone told them we need you to produce X amount of cars, and that was it. No one had to sell the cars. No one was going to lose their jobs for not selling the cars. They just produced the cars, and there's no one to sell them to. You've all heard about the empty cities, where they just build massive amounts of cities that people don't live in. Right? You cannot compete with that kind of system, where some guy at the top says, build 10 cities. What? What? We don't have functioning aircraft carriers and we have empty cities? This is not a competitive system. This is not a country that's advancing. But on top of all that, you've all heard the demographic crisis. You don't, they're just done. They've peaked. We've had peak China. It's a massive country. There are a lot of people there. It's not going to just go away. I'm not saying that there's not going to be a country of China. I'm not saying that they're not formidable at a certain level. They're not a threat. They're not growing, and they're not going to be this advancing threat, this growing threat. China's peaked. Yes, John Last. The U.S. is 100% in a state of decline. We are a house of fire, burning to the ground, but from within. We're going to collapse in on ourselves. 100%. But it won't be China, and God help us, it won't be Russia that does it. It will be us. We are committing suicide. We are killing ourselves. We are tearing down the foundations of our own house on top of our heads. I'm very, very, very convinced that looking outward is a distraction. We need to be looking inward. And we need to be thinking about, what's the right way to say this? The accurate way to say it, because I'm not scared of saying it. I mean, a lot of people have said this. I'm not about to say anything that other people haven't said. but I just want to say it accurately. We need to be thinking about balkanization. That's the word I like. We need to be thinking about how we're going to fracture into coherent wholes. You know, uh, there was this guy a few years ago, maybe 10, 15, maybe 20 years ago now, I don't know, who wrote a book. Uh, yeah, at least our children can change genders. About how I think he thought there were 12 nations inside of America, and he sort of carved it all up. Uh, I don't. It's fun to speculate on, and I mean that. I mean it's fun to speculate on. I wonder how it would work. I certainly can see a nation in the Northeast that probably ends up being a part of Canada. You know, like New York, Massachusetts, Maine, New Hampshire, Connecticut, all that. You know, I could see that breaking off, being its own thing, or again, like I said, becoming a part of Canada. Although Northern New York, upstate New York, man, them some woolly boogers up there. There's some solid people in upstate New York. Uh, so who knows? Obviously, you know, people think the South. I'm not so sure anymore because there's been such a huge influx of people into the South over the last 20 years that we don't have a cohesive culture anymore. Uh, I don't necessarily think that there's a nation to be had in the South. I think Appalachia, there's a chance for Appalachia to have a distinct culture. Uh, that doesn't seem to be, well, once you get into the mountains themselves, it doesn't seem that we've had the same influx of, now we have had some for sure. I'm on the extreme southern end of the Appalachians. Like, I'm just barely inside the Appalachians. Like as soon as you start going uphill a little bit, you'll see me. uh, and we have seen some influx, but not as much as other parts of the South. Uh, but I could see Appalachia, you know, maybe a period stretching from North Georgia, you know, up through Tennessee and in Kentucky and parts of Ohio and West Virginia and all that, even Pennsylvania. Certainly, you start looking at, you know, Idaho and all that up there. My geography's not great. I don't know with Texas. That Texas is hard. I actually do. I think there's that. Anyway, all this is really fun to think about, and to me, that's what we need to be focused on. What comes next? Because this system we have can't exist. We can't keep going like this. I said I've talked about this before. I don't remember how long ago this was now. It was some time ago, but there was a an opinion piece in the New York Times, and it was one of their regular opinion writers, and I don't want to speculate. I think I remember who it was, but it would be anyway. This guy wrote this opinion article, editorial or whatever, and he said that it was racist to oppose socialized medicine. That black people have higher health problems. I don't think that's true. Liberals have worse health problem. I think it was worse outcome. I can't remember how I said it. Liberals have worse health outcomes because of how they live their lives. And right now, black people tend to identify more with liberalism. So I don't. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. So he said because black people have worse health outcomes, it was racist to oppose socialized medicine. Well, I personally believe that socialized medicine is the greatest threat to my freedom there is. Uh, hey, MGTOW cowboy. Uh, so you can't reconcile my belief with his belief. You know, I believe abortion is the death of a child, usually the murder of a child, and liberals believe that opposing abortion is the murder of a woman. There's no way to reconcile. These are two morally opposed beliefs. Two people who believe these two different things cannot live together in the same polity. We can't be citizens in the same nation. I believe that they're murdering children and they believe that I'm murdering women. There's no reconciling that. There's no middle ground there. That is irreconcilable differences. And we've got this on thing after thing after thing after thing. You know, I think homosexuality is a reprehensible moral evil. And there's people that think of that me thinking that is literal violence against gay people. Uh, there's people who say that if you oppose transgender surgeries or treatments for children, you're killing children, causing them to commit suicide. I believe that you're mutilating them in ways that Nazi scientists hadn't even thought of yet. You can't reconcile those two beliefs. People who have these different beliefs cannot function together. We have to separate. Now, we can argue about what level, to what degree we have to separate. Can we go back to a radical federalism? Can we go back to a pre-Civil War state where love is love? Can we go back to a pre-Civil War state where, like, I'm a citizen of the state of Georgia, not the United States, and Georgia handles its own affairs, and the federal government just like handles monetary policy and national defense. Could we go back to a system like that? Possibly. I think it'd be difficult. It would be very, very, very difficult because we have this thing in this country where each state has to honor the legal documents and legal judgments and everything of each individual state. So Georgia has to honor the legal documents from New York. So if you go to get married in New York, you're married in Georgia. So that just brings the problems. We would have to. There would have to be some fairly radical alterations to the Constitution, I think, for us to reach a level of federalism that allows us to live together. Or one side has to defeat the other. By the way, and that's an option here too. If one side isn't going to defeat the other side, though, and we're going to kind of stay in this stasis, the status quo, then we have to separate. We can't stay together any longer. And that's what we have to be focused on. Are we going to be defeated? Are we going to lose? And if we're not going to lose and we're not going to win, what's our next step? China and Russia and Ukraine, this is all a red herring. This is all a distraction. I hate what Russia's done in Ukraine. I would like it if the Ukrainians won. I was very disappointed in Putin. I thought Putin was the Christian prince. I thought he was gonna do good things in Russia, even if he didn't believe it. I think at the time I thought he was going to do it because he thought it was good politics. He didn't. And when I really, really lost all hope in Putin was when he was wasting massive amounts of men and money in Ukraine, and Armenia needed him to keep his treaty promises to them, and he couldn't. He couldn't go down and keep his promises in Armenia because he was so bogged down in Ukraine. And that was Muslims attacking Christians and running them out of their land and committing genocide in that territory there in Armenia or Azerbaijan or whatever it was. But he had all the time and the money in the world to kill Christians, or at least nominal Christians. They might not be good Christians, but that doesn't mean Putin gets to kill them. I'm not a good Christian. Putin doesn't get to kill me. So I was very disappointed in Russia. And I look, I was so high on all that I was looking at Russia as a possible immigration destination. I was starting to think about and sort of to do the mental work around saying, could I relocate to my family to Russia if necessary, or even if the opportunity became available, because we would be able to live in a Christian nation that was. I don't think it's a thing anymore. And Russia has the same demographic problems that China does. By the way, they might even be worse. Anywho, all of that. I don't even remember how I got off on that tangent. There was something I was wanting to talk about. Oh, yeah, the coming out of her. These are the things we need to be focused on. How how do we come out of her? Because look, I don't believe that we are called to failure. I don't believe that we're called to oppression. I believe that in I know some people are migrating, Sharon, and I hope it works out. I wish them well. Uh, and if I'm wrong, I'll be very, very happy because it would make me ecstatic to know that there was a safety net out there. Uh, but what was I saying? Son of a gun. Oh, I don't believe we're called to oppression. I don't believe we're called to failure. I believe we can be victorious in every generation. Uh, I just read, I finished reading C.S. Lewis. You know, many of you are probably familiar with the Narnia books, right? Written by C.S. Lewis. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Y'all saw the movies, Aslan, all that. Well, he wrote it's called a space trilogy, and it's the weirdest science fiction books you've ever read. It has very little to do actually do with space, and there's not a single laser gun. Uh, but I just finished reading it, and it's a little bit of a slog sometimes. But once I was done reading all three books, I was just blown away with how brilliant C.S. Lewis was, and he kind of echoes this idea too. Not that he echoes me, but it sounds like he shares this idea. I don't believe that there's a set time when this world's going to end. I believe God wants this world to go on as long as it can go on. I believe He created an entire universe out there for us to explore. I believe He would let us go to the stars and see incredible things. He would let us populate the universe. He loves us. He loves this creation. He wants there to be as many of us as there can be. He wants us. He created us to live in this perfect, wonderful world, and the fact that it's been uh, flawed doesn't mean that he hates it. C.S. Lewis wasn't Catholic; he was Anglican. Tolkien was Catholic. J.R. Tolkien, the guy who wrote Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and all that, he was a Catholic, but Lewis was Anglican. Although now I have heard some Catholics say that Lewis might have converted had he lived longer, but I don't believe that. I don't see any signs of that. But I'm not a scholar, so what do I know? So I don't believe that we're fated. Now we we could be fated to judgment now, but I don't believe that at any point we have to just say, oh well, it's all in God's hands. I think He's put it in our hands. I think He's given us a call to dominion and victory, and that if we will be faithful, He says it in His Word. There's that Chronicles. If my people who are called by my name I'm going to paraphrase it because I'm not going to be able to remember it, but will confess their sins and turn from their wicked ways. I will bless them. I will restore them. I'll bring back the rain. Yeah, I believe that 100%. We could have that. We are not fated to defeat. We are not fated to domination. We could be victorious again. And we need to be thinking about that stuff. How do we separate ourselves out from this world around us? how do we make pockets and communities? I don't even want to say righteousness because that sets this bar. I don't think any of us think that could be achieved, but of just morality. How do we create pockets of morality, just like when God was going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah, and Abraham got God to say, "If I find 10 men, will you spare them? If I find 10 righteous men, let's say 10 moral men, if I find 10 moral men, will you spare?" And God's like, "Yes, of course, absolutely. How do we make those pockets of 10 righteous men?" Ooh, that should be, there should be some thought put into that. What do we call those? Like Abraham cells? Oh my gosh. Pastor Fox, I doubt you're still here, but if you're still here, sir, you need to do a, let me tell you what you need to do. It would be very interesting to have you do kind of a series of thought experiments on the idea of Abraham cells. You know, men looking for 9 other, moral men to form an Abraham cell to try and make an area, a geographic area where God might not bring judgment from because of the Abraham cell. What an interesting idea. Is cell the right word? Abraham, I like cell. I don't know. Anyway, well, yeah. Once you've got a group of 10, then you go looking for that other group of 10. This is stuff Pastor Fox actually talked about before, so I maybe just been given a different word to something that's already. What was he calling those? Yeah, my mind, I'm drawing a blank. Do you think there's a possibility of mass unrest in the next 6 months? Uh, if Kamala is installed. I think there's a possibility of mass unrest in the next 6 months, no matter who's installed. Uh, I missed something from MGTOW. Let me go back and check out because MGTOWs are always interesting, and this particular MGTOW has been interesting before. My goal is to move from Chicago to southern Indiana, start a hobby farm, and semi-retire by 50. Well, that's a good goal. Uh, Yes, I believe yeah, I agree 100%. The Amish have the right idea, except they're pacifists and they have weird beards. But if they would buy some guns and grow mustaches, 100%, I'm there with the Amish thing. Amish with guns. It's another thing Pastor Fox says. We want to be Amish with guns. Okay, mass unrest. Yeah, no, I think that norm has been I didn't know the Amish hunted. That's interesting. I'd never thought about that before, Daniel. So they have some kind of firearms. I wonder if they use man, Mark says Amish can and do buy guns. No, Daniel says Amish has guns. Uh, Lance Corporal veterans currently recruiting. My friends and brothers and I have something. Wow. So, any of you people who are talking about Amish with the guns, do they have any restrictions? I mean, I'm assuming they don't use red dots or anything. Would they restrict themselves to black powder? Do they use bolt actions? Big time Amish hunting in Pennsylvania. Daniel, do you know what kind of firearms they allow themselves to use? Do they use scopes or optics? Is it all iron sights? This is fascinating to me. Oh, come on. All right, mass unrest. I think mass unrest is going to be just a recurring theme. That that norm has been breached. You know, whatever that sort of societal expectation that we aren't going to riot and burn things down has been breached. It's been breached more on the left than the right, but even the left now, or even the right now, has started to, and they don't have to fill out forms when buying them. I like that. You're talking about the Amish and the guns. The one problem is I'm very pessimistic about the right. Look, I have a strain of anarchism in me, anarchy. I believe that people always have the right to overthrow their government at any time for any reason. What was so brilliant about the American system was that it codified a way for the people to overthrow their government every 4 years. Lots of Amish hunting videos. Now I'm struggling. I'm okay with the idea of them, but they're using cameras and they're uploading them to YouTube. What's being an Amish even mean anymore? I'm so pessimistic. Check out Michael Yon's video on the Darien Gap. Huh. Uh, I'm so pessimistic on the right burning anything down. Uh, you know, the genius of our system was that it gave us a way to overthrow our government every 4 years, and every 2 years, and every 6 years. You know, every other year we have an opportunity to overthrow our government. There's a congressional election every 2 years. There's a Senate elections every 2 years somewhere. Not every senators serve 6 years, but they've got it staggered so that the Senate's always being replaced. I think on that same 2 years, not replaced, but there's Senate there's senators who are being replaced every 2 years who have served a 6 year term, but it's not like the whole Senate doesn't get thrown out every 6 years on the same 6 year cycle. Unlike the House, which you could, in theory, have the whole House turnover, the whole House of Representatives turnover every 2 years. That was the genius of the system. There was no need to overthrow the government because you could overthrow the government. That's what the system was. You were constantly overthrowing the government. But now with the deep state, with the administrative state, with all these federal bureaucracies burrowed in like ticks, you can't overthrow the government anymore. Overturning the elected officials doesn't affect the embedded bureaucrats. And I'm telling you all things you know. But I mean, there's been some signs of life, but most of them have been from one family out west. If it wasn't for the Bundy family, we wouldn't have had any successes on our side at all since the green corn revolution. Look that one up. I need to do a video on the green corn revolution. I need to do so many more videos than I do. Those of you who are interested, look up the green corn revolution. I believe this was in the 20s, but it might have been in the 30s. But it was this populist uprising of farmers who who rebelled. They revolted, and they were marching to Washington. It's called the Green Corn Revolution because they were headed to Washington, and they were armed up. I mean, it was a militia, and they were going. They called it the Green Corn Revolution because it was early spring, and they were having to eat green corn on unripe corn out of the fields on their way. They ran out of steam. Hey, vulgar display of truth is here. I can't remember where they ran out of steam. They got across a couple states though. It's a really surprising little incident in our history, and it's sort of fascinating to me that it's not better known. And I've only read one article on it too, by the way. I haven't done a deep dive on it. I need to do a deep dive on it though. It's the sort of thing this channel is all about. Uh, yeah, Mark. That's my other thing. So we're going to give that carve out again for those people who have specific moral objections to voting, which again I don't necessarily agree with, but I respect your principle. But if you don't have that, if you don't have a definite moral objection to voting on some kind of philosophical grounds, and you don't vote, then yeah, I don't have any faith that you would show up, for some kind of militia muster or some sort of militia action. Again, if you've got that specific moral objection, that doesn't apply to you, Palmetto. If you're still here, you've been very, very quiet. So, which is not like that young man. He has opinions. He really should make videos. He's an interesting young man. But if you're just a guy who's like a man, I'm sorry, I hate it when we call ourselves guys, dudes. We're not guys, we're men. Stephen Cooper, how you doing, brother? Yeah, I wouldn't say you're late. This was completely unplanned. I just did it on the spur of the moment, and it's just a conversation. It's been a good one though. It's been a good one. The chat has been very, very, very interesting this evening. I'm doing well, Stephen. How are you, sir? Yeah, but yeah, you're not going to show up to the muster, and I'm not even. I mean, none of us are sure we'll show up, so I shouldn't even be throwing that out there. You know what? Our country is in a terrible condition. We can all see the writing on the wall, and we all still have really good lives. I mean, we have really good lives. I've got a great life. I've got a great wife. I've got all these kids. I've got this little paid off house in the middle of the woods that I have all these plans for. I have a wonderful, comfortable, incredibly blessed life. Rob Painless is here. I did not know Rob was in the chat. Good to know you're here, Rob. I wonder who else is here who's been quiet. Half Can, are you in here somewhere? Half Can? Stephen, we've been all over the place, but yeah, we've talked a little bit about voting, and we've gotten back onto voting now. Read my last post. Okay, I'm going back. Do I think BLM and Antifa are coming back out? Vulgar display of truth. Hold that thought. Let me go see what Lance Corporal Veteran said, and then we'll talk about Antifa and BLM. Okay. You don't have to know or trust someone to work or fight alongside someone. You only need to trust incentive that will direct people into doing what's necessary that's in their self-interest. I actually agree with this for the most part, Lance Corporal. We're all, we see it in marriages too. We're all looking for perfection. And we're all looking for that absolutely perfect community where we fit in and everyone agrees 100% with us, and we have total trust, and we all look like a camouflage-clad version of the old show Friends, where we all fit in perfectly, and we all have deep, intimate ties, and we can all say really funny, horrible things to each other and not get mad. And by the way, in this fantasy, I am a version of Joey, I think. Or Gunther. I like Gunther. Or I'm probably that psychotic police officer boyfriend of Phoebes who shot the bird one time. But we don't need perfection. We don't need perfection in our spouses. We don't need perfection in our friends, and we don't need perfection. God, you know what? I just want. I don't care. Uh, Steven's channeling because he has a nubbin. uh, I don't care if the militias are real. I don't care if they'd actually show up. I just want them to form. I just want them to meet. I just want them to organize so that there's just the idea of them out there. Uh, just the idea that it's possibility that a bunch of men with rifles might are at least there. Even if there's no chance they would ever do anything, the very fact that once a month, uh, a couple tens of thousands of men nationwide get together and do some kind of martial anything, I think it would just be completely transformative in the culture. Um, and I don't care if they're all fat and they're all loudmouths and they're all disabled. I don't care. I want men in camouflage meeting together in semi-public forums and talking trash. Just want them talking trash. Look at the Lynchburg Constitutional Militia. Yeah, the gun range. You know what, Mark? Excellent, excellent, excellent point. And you've shamed me. I need to do this myself. We all probably should be getting memberships at gun ranges, supporting these gun ranges, participating in them, and using them, like I said, maybe once a month. Those would be excellent, excellent rallying points. They're an excellent infrastructure to start building on. The other ones I really like uh, are volunteer fire departments. I think those are also excellent uh, bases for organizing around, foundations for organizing around. But look, we need access to ranges just to practice our skills because it's getting to the point where you can't shoot in your backyard anymore. I used to be able to shoot here, and now I don't feel comfortable shooting anything more than 22s or pistols here. And even that I'm not 100% okay with because they've just built some houses up at the top of the hill. And I'm just not comfortable shooting ARs out here anymore. That those bullets just travel too far. Uh, so where am I going to get any practice? I need to go join the local gun club, and there is one. The last time I looked into it, I think it was like $300 a year or something. It was just prohibitively expensive for me. But I mean, that's an expense I need. I need to. I need to be able to come up with that. I've got sons. I need to be working on their marksmanship. Actually, Stephen, I am doing that. I am collecting tires. There are some really good public ranges around too. You can come down here and shoot anytime you want to. Thank you, Rob. That 1,500-mile road trip will, and the Sasquatch has about 175-yard range. But again, even that's 4 hours away, and that's just northern Tennessee. He's just in Tennessee. I'm in North Georgia. He's in northern Tennessee, and it's still a 4-hour drive. And I need to get up there and see him anyway. But it's like, when do I have an 8 hours to just make the trip? It's got to be at least an overnighter. And I've got a pregnant wife, and I've got 8 kids in the house, and it's excuse after excuse after excuse after excuse after. I've got all the excuses. I give you excuses all day long. Some of them are even good excuses. It seems like I've got family function. We've got birthdays every other weekend. God help us, October. We have so many birthdays in October. So my birthday's in October. I have two sons and a daughter with birthdays in October. I have a son-in-law with a birthday in October. I have a grandson with a birthday in October, and I think my parents' anniversary is in October. Like literally every weekend in October. Oh no, I have two sons. Two sons with birthdays, and it doesn't matter. Yeah, John Lovell is, who was that? Steven. Yeah, John Lovell does have a range down somewhere just north of Atlanta. I think it's in Marietta, if I remember correctly, as where his facility is. I have not priced it. He's about 2 hours away from me. I'm pretty in extreme North Georgia. Uh, Public ranges aren't not busy during the workdays, Mark, but I am. Oh, 350 yards. That's a great one. Oh, wow. And you've got access to 700-yard range. Uh, I just assume that his prices are legitimately uh, too high for me. Uh, Again, I make about 50 grand a year, 8 kids in the house, 9 kids. I can't even remember how many kids I'm paying for. All right, so vulgar display of truth had BLM and Antifa. If there's any patriots in the Four Corners area, y'all start a conversation with vulgar display of truth. Do I think BLM and Antifa will come back out? I do not think BLM will come back out. I think they have been pretty thoroughly exposed as what they were, which was just a vulgar cash grab, and I think they've been fairly discredited. Uh, Antifa, I don't know what I think about Antifa. I used to think Antifa was a pretty big threat, and if you go back and look at some of my older videos when the whole Antifa thing was going on, I talked about him a fair amount, and I am still prone to think Antifa is a threat. Uh, because they have been in the past. And in other situations, and over for a very long period of time, there was this group back in the French Revolution called the sans culottes. It meant without pants. They wore. It's not like they were running around nude from the waist down. They wore something else that wasn't pants. I don't remember what it was, but the sans culottes were Antifa before Antifa. They were young men. They were mostly criminal gangs. They had some kind of loose political idea. They were affiliated loosely with this group called the Montagnards, or the mountain. Uh, yeah. So this is Stephen. He's saying John Lovell. That's Warrior Poet Society. Charges $450 for a pistol or rifle one course. That's not bad. That's not bad when you think about what he's having to he's got to have a range, and he's got to have classroom, and he's got to have instructors, and he's got to have liability insurance and all this stuff. $450 for a class with range time is not, if he's got quality instructors, that's not insane, but it's $450, and that's half a week's pay for me. I take home about $950 a week, and that's a half week's pay. It's just a lot of money. But, I mean, money well spent. And there's the Appleseed Project. The Appleseed Project, if y'all have never looked into the Appleseed Project, that is a superb organization. Anywho, so Antifa and Antifa type groups have a very long history. Back to at least the French Revolution, they were vicious. They were absolutely vicious in the French Revolution. And they were the power base for a lot of the horrific stuff that happened in Paris during the French Revolution. And of course, Groups similar to that were very active in the Russian Revolution. Stalin came out of kind of an Antifa type criminal gang. Uh, I've never even been to Iowa, Mark, and I would like to go to Iowa. Ah, I hate tangles. So I'm torn on Antifa. Anytime you can get disaffected young men twisted and moving in a direction, that can be a powerful, powerful, powerful voice. They are, their judgment is minimal. They're very aggressive. They're very driven. They tend to be very, very brave. They tend to not think through the consequences of their actions. Groups of young men in gangs like that with some sort of ideological motive uh, to organize around can be powerful. Uh, but they appear to have lost some of their initiative right now. And it could just be that the left just isn't having kids. I honestly think this is our greatest advantage right now. That, they'll call it idiocracy, how the smart people didn't have children and all the stupid people like me had all these kids. But y'all have seen my buddy Jeff, the bearded gringo, uh, like barbecue in Haiti, just evil. Yeah, or they kill him. They kill their kids. My buddy Jeff has 8 kids. How many sons? He's got 3 daughters, so he's got 5 sons. Like Jeff's got 5 sons, and I've got 7 sons. I know another local family that we fellowship with some, and they have 5 or 6 sons. Uh, we just seem to be really, really heavy in sons in our communities right now. All the groups I'm involved with just seem to be very heavy in sons, and it feels like the left isn't having children to begin with. The children, thank you, Stephen. The children, the sons they do have, they vaccinate the shit out of them, and they feed them all this soy crap, and their testosterone is low, and it just feels like they've lost the dynamism. When you suppress masculinity the way the left suppresses masculinity, you're no longer capable of projecting force. And it feels like that's where Antifa, there's just not a very deep well of leftist young men to draw from anymore. And the ones there are tend to be David Hogg types. I'll never get over that picture of David Hogg. If y'all remember David Hogg, he was allegedly one of the survivors from that shooting in one of the school shootings in Florida. I don't remember. It wasn't Sandy Hook. That was in Connecticut. What was that one in Florida that was pretty bad, where the cop didn't go in? Anyway, this kid comes out of that as allegedly one of the survivors, even though he wasn't even in school that day. Uh, and he's a total soy boy. He's like this big around. There was this kind of picture of him with his fist up in whatever that. He's got his fist up and his arms extended out, and his elbow. I'm not making this up. His elbow was the widest part of his arm. Like he had this tiny little arm that ran up to his elbow, flared way out at the elbow, and then comes right back down, and like the rest of his arm is the same. Parkland, thank you, Stephen. That was Parkland. Was the same width as his wrist. He basically was his whole arm was or wrist was an elbow, with wrists on either side of it. This is not a threat. This is not someone who's going to be prone to violence. Uh, yeah, you need to leave your sons out in the rain sometimes. I can't get them to come in out of the rain sometimes. That's what happens when you don't air condition a double wide trailer in Georgia in the summer. They got to go outside. They don't have a choice. They'll die if they stay inside. So that's not a really good answer on Antifa. Uh, my gut is that they don't have the energy anymore. They don't have the dynamism. Even when Antifa was kind of a thing back a few years ago, when you actually looked at their rallies, there was a lot of fat women in masks, and not COVID masks, but like the balaclavas and all that, or baklavas or however it's pronounced. One of them's a pastry, and the other one's a mask. Uh, but anytime you can get a mob together and spun up, they can be really, 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 really dangerous. Uh, so, but as an organization, I don't know. Yeah, but again, Mark, I just who do they draw from? Now, 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 we've imported all these young men of fighting age from all these different cultures, and they're going to be disaffected. They're not going to thrive here. Many of them are not going to be able to find women. Uh, so there may be a wellspring of masculine anger. Yeah, not just Latin America. Look, the Hispanics are turning out to kind of be on more aligned with the side of good than not. The Darien Gap. Yeah. Okay, Les. Right. I'd forgotten that I was thinking of the Fulda Gap when you said that earlier. The Darien Gap is this area in South America. I want to say it's Panama, where so many of the illegal aliens come through. And yeah, they've been going down there and sort of observing, uh, who's coming through the Darien Gap of Panama. Thank you, headed north to America. And there's like every nation in the world has is represented people coming through that Darien Gap by the thousands, by the absolute thousands. Lots of Chinese, lots of Muslims from all the various different places, people who do not share our culture, do not even respect our culture, value our culture, people who've been told that we're weak and decadent and undisciplined, which is not untrue, and that we've stolen everything we have, and that they're just coming here to get their stuff back that we stole from them, even though they can't point to any time in their history when they ever had what we have. Uh, I don't know who they say we stole all this stuff from because no one else has ever had it, but they keep saying we stole it, uh, and these people are coming here specifically to wage economic warfare, if nothing else. Uh, and what always happens with leftists, always happens, their ideas don't work and their ideologies fail, and then they get really, really, really angry. And if they're in power, they set up gulags and they round up all their opponents and they send them to the gulags because they can't deal with the idea that they were wrong. Uh, and they turn violent. The left always goes violent. They always do. They always go violent. They always go to violence first. And we can go back to the '60s and look at the SD, the SDS, and the Underground Weathermen, ELF, uh, the Environmental Liberation Front. Uh, you know, there's been all sorts of uh, leftist terrorist groups in this country, uh, going back decades, bombings and everything, whole 9 yards. So, The Spanish Civil War is a very interesting one, Mark. I haven't studied it as much as and I haven't, when I say studied, that's giving myself airs. I've consumed a lot of information. Uh, yeah, the gulags were as bad as anything the Nazis did. The gulags were hideous. But I've consumed a lot of information about the French Revolution, a fair amount about the English Civil Wars, and of course the American Revolution. I've looked a little bit at the Spanish Civil War, not as much as I probably should have. Uh, I I think I really like Franco. Uh, Somewhere some liberals head just exploded. I gotta I gotta keep. I've either got to get a humidor and keep my cigars properly hydrated, or I've got to talk less and smoke more. Excuse me. Uh, but I think I like Franco a lot. The Spanish Civil War was very, very harsh. Uh, yeah, don't get me wrong, the Nazis were evil. But two things can be true at once. The Nazis can be evil, and the commies can be evil. We don't have to say the Nazis were evil, so the commies were good. The differences between the Nazis and the commies were minimal. Horseshoe theory is real, sir. If you don't know what horseshoe theory is, we always talk about political ideologies in the as a line, a diametrically opposed line, left and right. And the Nazis are on the right, which is actually a lie, and the commies are on the left. But in reality, horseshoe theory says that political ideologies don't exist on a line, on a spectrum. They exist in a horseshoe. They curve, and the farther you move, the closer they actually come back to each other. So horseshoe theory says the farther you go left towards communism, the more you're curving back up towards fascism, which is curving back up. And when you actually get to fascism and communism, if you look at the real definition of fascism, not this fake definition of fascism they use these days, the differences are minimal. Uh, just absolutely minimal. Uh, Russia, Russia in World War II, when they would come to a minefield, they would call up their least valuable infantry units and just have them march through the mine. That's how they cleared minefields. They would just march through the minefields. They would pull their armor back so the armor didn't get damaged in the mines, and they would march their infantry through the minefield and just clear the mines with the men. They would basically just ignore the mines, and that's how the Russians. I mean, the Russians just don't care. Uh, I read a graphic recently that said Russia never, ever, never gets worried in any war until they've lost 500,000 men. Uh, and that's why you only need an 80 IQ to be in the infantry. uh, and that until Russia loses 500,000 men, they don't even blink. It doesn't matter what it is. They'll just keep throwing bodies at it until there's about 500,000 dead guys, and then they might start looking at it and going, "Oh, who knows? Maybe we should do something different here." Um, and I don't know what about Afghanistan? Uh, I don't know how many people they lost in Afghanistan, George. I know it was a lot, and they were there for like 10 to 12 years, as I recall, and they lost a lot of men in Afghanistan. Yeah, Stephen. The last I heard, and I'm not paying much close attention to the Ukraine situation anymore. But both of them were. I thought both sides were over 200,000. That sounds right, Stephen. 79 to 89 sounds about right. It was about a decade. Uh, I was a kid back then, and I would just. My dad had a friend who got Soldier of Fortune magazine. Uh, vulgar display of truth. I don't. It seems like the drone technology is such as that shotguns just don't have the range. Uh, but my dad's friend got Soldier of Fortune magazine, and he would let us have them sometimes, the old ones, and I would just devour Soldier of Fortune. If you remember that, it was a great magazine. I doubt it's still around anymore, but boy, it was a fun magazine. And the conceit was that it was the magazine for mercenaries. They had their own, but it was really just a gun magazine that. But they would all the time be having stories from alleged mercenaries fighting with the Mujahideen in Afghanistan, which at the time, yeah, Mark used to get it. It was a big deal because in '79, uh, yeah, I get that vulgar, yeah, that the shotguns are better than rifles for taking down the drones. But we're going to have to develop some technologies to deal with drones, uh, and I think it's going to be something like a 50 caliber or a 75 caliber uh, rifle type shell that then explodes into some kind of shotgun situation. And I don't know how that would work or what the technology would be, but some kind of slug that gets close and then, but how that would work, I have no idea, or if it's even, it's got to be possible. Hmm. I'm telling you, man, I did a video on this. The Israelis have something called, I believe it's Scorpius, and it's a game changer. When Marjorie Taylor Greene was talking about the Jewish space lasers, oh yeah, that's a good idea, Stephen Cooper. 40 millimeter design for to airburst. That might be the because those 40 millimeters, they've got this stuff in them, this technology where they have to spin in a certain amount of times before they arm. So I'm sure there's a way that can be adapted to where now you've got kind of a set range that they're going to burst at that point. But I think that's okay. Where they, like, I think it's 13 times before the film, the 40 millimeter grenades, at least the HEDP ones we shot in the Corps back in the 90s. They would have to spin. I think it was 13 and a half times before they would be armed. Uh, what is 148 divided by 60? That's two. So we've been going for about 2.5 hours. But yeah, something like that. That would seems like it would be a thing. No, the Jewish space laser. Let's go back to the Jewish space laser. Uh, it's some kind of. It's a laser that then an electrical charge follows the laser, and so they can do a point. It's like an EMP rifle. So there can be like two airplanes in the sky dogfighting, and they can target one and fry all of its electrical systems and leave the second one. Uh, it's it's an earth-shattering technology if it's real, and I think it is. Absolutely earth-shattering. Stephen Cooper's calling them the lightning lasers. That's an interesting phrase, and I think it's an accurate one. But yeah, they can hit a target with a laser, and then they can send up an electrical shock follows the laser almost like it's a wire, and then boom, it hits that target and just fries all the electronics in it. Yeah, they they do some amazing things. All right, man. I think we're winding down. Yeah, what I was thinking about talking about when Pastor Fox showed up and inspired us all, which he does so well, was things I think men should do to be working on. Okay, Les, appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much. You guys were our moderators tonight. You didn't have to do anything because we have such a good group of men. But it's always a load off my mind when I know you guys are in the chat, making sure nothing gets too far out of hand. I was thinking about the things as men that we should just be incorporating in our lives to help improve ourselves. And Jeff Cooper, if y'all remember Jeff Cooper, and it would be kind of cool to get a collection of Jeff Cooper's essays, articles. He was always having these sorts of things. Hey, anti-at Jack. And one of them is he said every man should learn to play a musical instrument. He had a bunch of those. You know, you should always carry a pocket knife. He said never trust a man who doesn't carry a pocket knife. Jeff Cooper was the one who came up with the scout rifle concept, and some other things like that. He was a big advocate for the 1911. He felt like the 1911 was like the perfect pistol, and I don't deny it's very, very good. Not a big fan of the 45 ACP. Please don't burn me in effigy. It has its uses. I think the 45 ACP is fantastic for suppressing. Yeah, Bentley and Porsche. What's that? Bentley and Porsche Anderson. It's interesting that their first names are luxury automobiles. Woof, we, the Scottish Terriers from sunny Southern California, fell into this show. We shall watch. We appreciate you being here with us, Bentley and Porsche. And hopefully we do not outrage your Southern California sensibilities too greatly. Oh, now the high power, I think the high power is a fantastic pistol. Yeah, the 1911 and 45 HP, 45 horsepower equals America. I think 45 is wonderful if you're going to suppress, and if you are going to suppress, then I think 45 should be your pistol caliber. Including for pistol caliber carbines. I think it's the best option out there for suppression if you're not going to go 300 blackout. Oh, Sharon says Soldier of Fortune still exists. That's cool. But I'm a big fan. My carry gun is the Jericho. You know, it used to be called the Baby Eagle. The Baby Eagle is an Israeli improvement on the CZ75, which is a Czechoslovakian improvement on the Browning High Power. And I love it. I think it's a fantastic gun. I want to get a Browning High Power one day just to kind of see how vulgar. I'm very, very interested. Oh, I like everything CZ, Steven. I'm just a fanboy, and I haven't even shot a real CZ ever. I've only shot these Baby Eagles. The Czechs make very good guns. I'm very interested in this new Glock 26. Mark, I know. I do not deny. I accept. I will affirm. I will sign affidavits to the effect that I know that the Glock is an excellent handgun. I don't deny it. but they bore the shit out of me. Oh, a vulgar shot of micro-roni. That's the carriage they put the Glocks in, and you get a little PCC. They look very interesting. Glocks just bore me to tears, uh, and that's not. I mean, that just shows how vain and shallow I am. I do think that pistols don't have to be standardized. Uh, they're a they're a Steven says a Glock is great until you have to put your hand on it to shoot it. That's a pretty good line. I agree. I do not like the way they feel in the hand. I do not like the grip angle. Uh, I'm just one of those men who I really prefer the feel of the CZ. And that anti-adjack, that is not a, an inconsiderate point. Glocks are easy to 3D print. 3D printing is possibly the future of a Second Amendment. If we can manufacture firearms individually, effective firearms that they can't control, that they can't deny us, that is a game changer. All these men that are working on, and they're mostly young men who are working on the 3D printing, and get one without the grip. They're a little hard to shoot. Uh, who are working on homemade firearms and 3D printing. These men are the vanguard of our Second Amendment rights. They're very expensive. Uh, I would love to find a way to support that community if I could, because because those men are doing the work, or at least a version of the work that will pay dividends for freedom. I have a lot of the 3D printing and the private manufacture of effective firearms gives me a lot of hope for the future of the Second Amendment. Uh, Now, there's other choke points that have to be overcome. Ooh, $1 million for a machine. Eee. Look up Defense Distributed. They sell CNC machines for 80% receivers. Uh, there's still choke points. Barrels are a choke point. Primers. Primers and good projectiles are a major choke point. If they control the ammunition, uh, they absolutely can turn our firearms into really inconvenient paperweights. But we all know this. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. But oh, I was talking about Jeff Cooper, and one of the things Jeff Cooper said was that all men need to learn how to play a musical instrument. And I am the most musically untalented man you'll ever meet. I have zero. Yeah, price of ammunition is awful. I have zero musical ability, and it's always been a sore point for me because I come from kind of a musical family. I got some talented brothers. My father's kind of a talented musician, and they always kind of gave me a little bit of crap because I was such a talentless. I can't even describe how bad I am at music. But I finally decided to do something about it because I didn't want my sons. I wanted to try to inject music into the household. And I'd hoped that if I started trying to, and because I read Jeff Cooper, and Jeff Cooper said it, if I started trying to learn an instrument, maybe some of my kids would want to start trying to learn an instrument, and it worked. But look how shallow and vain I am. I've had this out here all night waiting to show it to you. Now, it might look like a guitar. It might look like a guitar, but count the strings. 1, 2, 3, 4. You'll know that guitars have 6 strings. So that would make this a ukulele, but if you know anything about ukuleles, you know that they're actually much smaller than this. This is this really kind of cool little instrument. It is a ukulele, but it's called a baritone ukulele, and it's the four. It's like a guitar with two of the strings cut off, and it's got a little bit deeper. A little bit deeper tone than a regular ukulele. It's very cool, Vulgar. But because it's only got four strings, yeah, you don't have to do all the weirdness to cover all the strings and everything. And even untalented people can play a little bit of music. And it has been a very, very positive addition to my life. It's been very fun. I'm not good. I don't have any talent. You know, I'm not gonna ever impress anybody. But I can play little songs. You know what's cool, Rob? Is you can get a version that is a banjo. They call it a banjo-lele. Look it up. It's very, very fun, and it's got the same uh, strings. It's just four strings, four of the strings from a guitar, but it's got a little banjo body, and it sounds like a banjo, and you play it like a ukulele, and they're very, very, very cool. So there is no longer any excuse for us talentless men to not try to improve ourselves with a little bit of yeah. Vulgar says music saved his life and many other people's lives. Obviously, you know, I don't struggle with any of the things that music would say, but it has definitely enriched my life to a very, very impressive degree. So I'm gonna try to play one of my favorite songs I'm trying to learn. I'm not gonna try to sing because I'm a terrible singer. Tell me if you recognize the song. Uh, but it's a song I've been enjoying. I'm out of tune, and my tuner is my my tuner's on my phone. Daggum it, we're not going to be able to do it. It got cold out here. The thing shrunk up. If I go back inside, it won't be. I'm going to do it even though it's incredibly out of tune. Y'all can laugh. Uh, when this thing is in tune, it sounds a lot better. That's it. I love it. It's so fun. It is so fun, and it's so easy, and it has absolutely enriched my life. I've been learning some old hymns and some. I'm not gonna try to sing, but did anyone recognize the song? Someone tell me if they recognize the song. Stay way out of tune because I tuned it inside, and then the temperatures dropped out here, and it changed the tune. Obviously, it is very easy. It is very fun. Someone recognizes that song. Yeah, I would really have to work at being able to tune by ear, Vulgar. All right, I'll do it again and see if y'all. Oh, I screwed it up. Let me start that again. The streets of Laredo. I love it. It's very, very fun. There actually is a song I've thought about trying to do to be my intro. I don't know if y'all have ever heard the song "The Spanish Pipe Dream." Uh, Thank you, Rob. Listen to it. I think Rob is a real musician, so I think he's being kind to me. But if you've never heard the Spanish Pipe Dream, it really is the anthem for men like us. Uh, I'll see if I can play it. I'm not going to try to sing it. Anyway, it's you've heard it before. It goes, she was a level-headed dancer on the road to alcohol. That I was just a soldier on the road to Montreal. Anyway, yeah, it's actually about a draft dodger, so we don't like that part of it. But it's all about this couple, clocking out and going to start a homestead and raising a family. And the verse is blow up your TV, throw away the paper, move to the country, build you a home. Uh, Plant a little garden. Was it plant a little garden? Eat a lot of peaches. And try to find Jesus on your own. And it kind of is the anthem for men like us who are wanting to come out of her. So if I get a little bit better and I can talk my wife, because my wife can sing pretty well, if I can talk her into singing it for me, we might try to record it and use it as our intro music. Uh, Vulgar Display of Truth wants to build a cave house. I know a man here locally who built a cave house. Sort of. It's more like an earth ship. It's completely underground on 3 sides. Thank you, Sharon. You're very sweet. It's completely underground on 3 sides. It does have an exposed roof, and I can't remember if it's the south face or the north face is exposed, but it does have one exposed wall, and he essentially doesn't have to heat or cool it. It's cool all year round. On Red Mountain Pass, I have to look that one up. And it's a really good design. But now his is small. His is 1 bedroom, and he did have some water issues for a while. After he built it, he actually had to dig it back out and waterproof it a second time to stop the water issues from ingress in the house. But it's a really neat little house, and it absolutely does what he needed it to do, what he wanted it to do. He did build it into a hillside, and it's a great idea. Anywho, all right, man. We appreciate the hell out of you. This has been a lot of fun. I always enjoy getting to talk to you. I'm sorry that we don't do it more often. I keep meaning to, I'll go through these phases where I'm more diligent about the channel, and then I'll start drifting. Les isn't. Les is a musician. Sharon, I've got these short, stubby hands that are only good for gripping shovels and hammers. And I don't have an ear. And I don't know. I'm sure. I know if I worked on it, I could. I agree 100%. I've actually been working on this, though, for about 1.5 years, maybe 2 years. So it hasn't been a short period of time. I just haven't really told anyone about it. But as much as it's enriched my life, I'm trying to do that too, Lance Corporal Veteran. I've showed y'all a little bit about it in the past, and I'll probably show you some more in the future. I just hit a roadblock on that project. Good night, Sharon. Thank you for being with us. I hit a roadblock on that project that's going to need a little bit of doing to work around, and so I've left it and moved on, because mostly I enjoy starting projects. I don't like finishing projects. The more I can start a project and not finish it, the happier I am, unfortunately. But I'm going to set my sons on this one here shortly. I've just got 2 things I got to do. One of them is I got to open rock and roll. Thank you, Vulgar. Anyway, I'll show y'all that again. I'll do a video on that. I won't bore you with it now. Men, we appreciate you, Sharon. We appreciate you. Not equipment rental. It's more of uh, there's a very large metal thing in the way that I can't get to with equipment, and I need to open up a side of my foundation so that I can cut up this large metal obstacle and pull it out in pieces. I can't take the dirt out through the house anymore. It's just got to the point where uh, I was pulling the dirt out in 5 gallon buckets and taking it through the house, and that's not going to work anymore. First off, it's not fair to my wife because her house is, you know, filled with dirt, and I'm already such a high maintenance husband. She doesn't need any more problems. And then it's just where we're digging. Now we're digging and we're dragging the dirt all the way back here, then up and then out and around where we need it to, and it's just I need to change the route the dirt's coming out. So that's what's going on there. And to do that, I've got to cut up this big, huge metal thing and move it and open up a hole in this. It's just a whole thing. It's always the thing to do, the thing you got to do the thing you want to do the thing you need to do, the thing you got to do the thing you need to do the thing you want to do. Ugh, anyway, there we go. Men, we do appreciate you. Thank you so much, and we will talk to you soon. Please go vote. Thanks, Rob.